And that is confirmation of the two riders for our consolation final. And it'll be Jaime Busto versus Jeroni Fajardo, just as it was in Budapest first time out. And remember that Jaime Busto got things spectacularly wrong in the Hungarian capital and really was utterly destroyed by Fajardo. Let's see how this rivalry between the two teammates goes here at Extra Barcelona. A head-to-head now as they battle it out for a place on the podium. Jeroni Fajardo, for whom this is very much a home event, as I said previously, going up against Jaime Busto now in the consolation final. Only 4 sections in the consolation final. Sections 1 and 2, familiar as the first 2 sections from round 2. Section number 3 is also a throwback to round 2, section 4 from the second round, and section 4 for this consolation final is a new course, or a new direction of the course altogether. The only thing that is being undertaken at the moment is a bit of work on that section 4 to put the rock back in position, because it moved under the weight of Tony Bow as he launched his way through, and actually there is an attendant at the moment making adjustments to the section because under just his body weight it's moving around. So a little bit of fixing is going to be required before Fajardo can take to that section. Plenty of time for that work to be undertaken, because there are 3 sections before these two riders get to that stage. It's not a full lap with a set time allowance as it was in the opening 2 rounds. Now it's 1 minute per section, 1 section at a time, direct head-to-head, 1 against 1. Jeroni Fajardo versus Jaime Busto for 3rd position here tonight. Jeroni Fajardo, as he was in Hungary, the first rider out through the sections. As I said previously, vastly experienced Jeroni Fajardo, and he has great memories of this arena as well, the Palau San Jordi. Took his first career podium here in extra competition back in 2005. He was 3rd position here last season, and I'm sure would like to replicate that here tonight. So section number 1, which, as I said, we've seen in round number 2. And Jaime Busto suffered a failure in this section in the opening round. Jeroni Fajardo only dropped 1 mark. He's already dropped 1 mark in this section in the consolation final. Building up the revs. Can he do it again? Fajardo put the pressure on Busto, just as he did in the consolation final in Budapest. Good work. And Jeroni Fajardo is through in section number 1 with 20 seconds on the clock and a single mark scored. Remember, the riders can't carry forward their marks, their time rather, from one section to another. So that slate is wiped clean. It's back to a minute when he comes out for section 2. Now the focus is on Jaime Busto, who failed this section, remember, in heat number 1. He was the first rider out through it. He has seen 5 riders go through it since. Strong start, confident start, and it's got to be for Jaime Busto if he's going to beat Jeroni Fajardo. Psychological advantage you'd expect to be with Fajardo, who managed to beat his young rival and teammate in head-to-head competition in Budapest. Fajardo therefore becoming the top event rider. Jaime Busto, where Jeroni Fajardo dropped a mark. First time out in this consolation final. Busto will drop a mark as well for leaning. Some pivoting over the crest in the same way as Fajardo before him. Jaime Busto in his 15th extra start. Has made it through to the consolation final, has made it out of section 1, tied with Jeroni Fajardo. 3 sections remaining, any errors will be punished dearly. Busto doesn't look satisfied with his performance there, he clearly wants to go clean, but it's a solid start. If unspectacular, he's got through a section that cost him in heat number 1. Cost him dearly. If he'd managed a single mark in section 1 in the opening round, in round number 2 rather, then he would have tied with Adam Raga and had a shot at the final. Instead, it's the 3rd place playoff. Jeroni Fajardo now entering section number 2. Not much room for error for either of these riders. Jeroni Fajardo, former winner in X-Trial. 90 starts he's made. 28 podium finishes to his name. Chance to add a 29th tonight. Stuttering start, though, to section 2. Drops a mark for leaning on the opening step. He dropped 1 mark from this section in round number 2. Jaime Busto managed to clean on this same section in the second round. So, in principle, having survived a tough first section, Busto should have the upper hand in section 2, but Rarely do things pan out as you're expecting them to on paper. Down goes Fajardo the other side. It's going to be another mark dropped. 30 seconds remaining. Big step still to come. Any more than one mark, and Fajardo will fail this section, but he's not going to. Nice work from Jeroni Fajardo. Not the score he would have wanted from the section, but at least he's out of it. 2 marks conceded. Looks as though he's debating that somewhat, but it is 3 marks that go on the count. Jaime Busto then with an opportunity to take the lead. 2 marks clear at the moment of Jeroni Fajardo. Fajardo, though, has a section in hand. Busto has still got to complete this section too. Busto finished in 4th position at Extra Budapest, of course, with a somewhat disastrous consolation final. This one at least has got off to a better start. Section number 2, so far so good. Clean to date. Better landing than Fajardo. Busto with an opportunity to take a 2-mark lead with only 2 sections remaining. Could be his first podium of 2019. Already 3 times a podium finisher, Jaime Busto. Good effort there in section number 2. Clean in section 2. Busto leads it by 2. 2 sections remaining. Can Jeroni Fajardo find a way to get back into this contest? Doubt it's going to be decided here in section 3. I think it's going to go down to a last section decider between Fajardo and Busto here in Extra Barcelona 2019. Section 3. This is the same as the seemingly impossible section 4 from round number 2. You can see Fajardo at the entrance to it. And only 1 minute for such a section that proves so difficult in round number 2. Wouldn't surprise me to see a failure for both riders here. Fajardo, the first rider onto it. Makes the jump. Slightly different configuration in the consolation final compared to round 2, and Fajardo takes advantage of that. It's a pretty long section though, 45 seconds on the clock. Even the assistant looking at his watch there just to make sure. Fajardo's on course. This is the antithesis of curse of a commentator because Fajardo's working through well here. As I said, different configuration slightly to round 2. Riders didn't need to make the drop down that even Tony Bowe found impossible and ended up hitting his back on the section, remember, as he went down. Jeroni Fajardo with a decently sized step. Time ticking away though, 20 seconds to go. And down goes Jeroni Fajardo. It's a 5-mark score in section number 3, and Busto has an opportunity to take advantage. 7 marks now, the gap between the 2. And if Busto were to clean this one, he would be guaranteed a place on the podium. In fact, if he were to drop only 1 mark at the most, he'd be guaranteed a place on the podium as well. If we get a tie, we'll be going to a tie-break section. Jaime Busto then, embarking on section number 3. Fajardo's just done a 5 here. New ground for the 2 riders. Nobody made it past the second ramp. This is the first A-frame, if you like, and the second one down below where Jaime Busto just made it across is where the riders had to drop in round number 2. They don't have to do that in the consolation final, which makes this more achievable, but still not entirely achievable. Fajardo with a 5. Busto, with just over half of the allotted time still remaining, has now got to make it up the step that cost Fajardo, and he's not got a lot of time. 20 remaining is the call that comes from the assistant. Jaime Busto at the bottom. If he makes it through, this will be a big moment. I can't see him doing it. Time is against him. 10 seconds. 1 go with the front wheel. Go. It's now or never. He's up with 1 foot. He's going to run out of time, though. And all of that work for Jaime Busto to get to the top of the section, which he's managed, is unravelled by a lack of time to make it through, and it's a 5-mark score. Busto then on 6, Fajardo on 8. We're going to a last section decider. Just as I thought, both riders failing section 3 in the consolation final. Long section, tough step. Neither of the riders could make it. And now Jeroni Fajardo has an opportunity to banish his demons in this section number 4, which, if you remember, in reverse configuration in round number 2, he was the only rider to fail. There he is, look of concentration. If he drops to a failure here, Jaime Busto will be guaranteed third position here tonight. If he gets through, then Busto will have to nurse his advantage home. Jeroni Fajardo then, into section number 4. This to decide the podium. Final step of it, third position. So far so good for Fajardo. 1 mark for leaning there, the sump just tagging one of the small nodules on top of that rock, and that's going to cost him a mark. It was a glancing blow and one he moved on from swiftly, but that's not going to be much consolation. Fajardo with another drop mark. 3 is the gap between the 2 riders now. Busto only needs to avoid a failure. Fajardo doing well here in section number 4, but is that 2 drop mark score from section number 2 going to cost him? He's out of section number 4. 1 mark, as I called at the time, on the board for him. His lap total is 9. Jaime Busto on 6. So if Busto can do better than a 3-mark score in this section 4, then he will take a place on the podium here tonight. He's certainly going to keep his run of top 4 finishes going, Jaime Busto. 4 in a row now for Jaime Busto. Guaranteed at least 4th position here tonight, but it's all going to go down to a pressure situation. Busto himself looking for redemption after a bit of a disaster in the Consolation final first time out, and really this is getting lively now. Busto's already been given 2 marks early in this section. If he drops another, he'll move on to 9, the same as Fajardo. If he drops 2, it'll be a failure, and Fajardo takes the final step on the podium. No room for error now for Jaime Busto. Or we'll go down to a tie break. Half of the time remaining in section number 4. 2 marks is still the score. Jaime Busto, not with much of a margin, but he squeezed his home for a place on the podium. A single mark difference between the 2 riders. Now Busto can smile and relax at last, and he shakes his head with an exhale to say he knew just how close that was. Fajardo with a wry smile, shows 4 fingers. 4th position for him here tonight. He and Jaime Busto now tied in the championship standings, the 2 teammates. Going to be an interesting battle for the final step on the championship podium. Jeroni Fajardo, will see more of him again in round number 3. He's qualified as the top event rider. Jaime Busto, his teammate, a permanent rider for the series in 2019. They'll be back next time out, once again in Spain. But before we look forward to the remaining events of this X-Trial season, a look back at those performances in the Consolation. Jeroni Fajardo and Jaime Busto, each with a single mark in section number 1. From there, Jaime Busto taking a crucial advantage in section 2. He cleaned it, Fajardo with 2. Here we see it again from Jaime Busto. Really good work in section 2. And that was the difference between the 2 riders in the end. Both riders failed section 3, trying to get up that major step. Busto eventually made it up, but he'd taken too long in the preparation of that move and ran out of time. So that left it all to decide in section number 4, and Fajardo, glancing blow on one of the rocks, gave him a mark, leaving him on 9. Busto, for that first step there, cost himself 2 marks and left himself under pressure for the rest of the section. But he managed to save it. 2 marks for section 4. Wins the Consolation final by a single mark. Shakes his head when he gets over and through the gate. But there's confirmation of the result. Jaime Busto, 1 failure and 8 marks. Jeroni Fajardo, 1 failure and 9 marks. Busto takes the final step on the podium, his 4th career podium. And Jeroni Fajardo misses out on a 2nd consecutive podium here at Barcelona. He managed it in 2018. He managed it in the opening round of 2019 in Budapest as well. But Fajardo falls just short in front of his home crowd.